This program was created in part utilizing the Sound Collection Lab located in the History, Social Sciences, Philosophy Department on the campus of the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. The views expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of History, Social Sciences, Philosophy, or its faculty, or the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith.
Hey, this truck like it's getting ready to move here. I couldn't see if it was him or not.
I'll see Mr.
Can you stay with police car real quick?
10-4, And welcome back to Bill Hollenbeck's Beyond the Badge. Once again, we are definitely here at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith in the Sound Collection Lab. We give a big shout out to the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith for partnering with us on this podcast. We're extremely thrilled, right, to have my partner in crime, Professor Kevin Jones.
Good morning,
Professor Jones, I presume. So, today is for me is kind of a special day on many levels. We're actually doing our very first podcast from another state. So, and also one of my closest and dear friends of mine that I worked for years with in Dallas PD on in special operations in our tactical or SWAT, it's also known as that, is my old partner George Kleinmeier. George, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I really appreciate you joining us for this podcast, and we're going to have some fun.
It's my pleasure.
All right, George. So a little bit about my buddy George. When I came to the 10s squad, I came from the 30s. And right after that, before, of course, I knew George for many years working in TAC and so forth. But somehow or another, he and I connected. And we partnered up and rode together when we weren't out swatting. We were patrolling, high crime areas, answering calls for service, and other things, other assignments. And we'll talk about a few of these, but some of my fondest memories in law enforcement certainly is a direct result of my old partner George Kleinmeier. So again, man, I'm so thankful to you to come on board and be here and have some fun with us.
And are we just going to tell the G-rated stories today, or?
I think PG-13 might suffice for sure. We could probably go into a little bit, but we'll leave a lot of the blood, guts, and glory out of it. That's exactly right. So George is my favorite Yankee. Comes from Long Island, New York, and you grew up in Long Island. Is that right, George?
I did. A little town called West Sayville, and is out on the south shore of Long Island. And it's kind of crazy way how I wound up in Texas. I was playing football and wanted to play football at a major college, and I was actually dating a girl that her brother was the quarterback at East Texas State University, and he called home and was talking to her and said that both quarterbacks were hurt, and did she know anybody? And she was dating me, and so I called him and talked to the coaches, and that's how I wound up going to Texas. And first day here, it was 110 in the shade, and we had a kind of a goofy coach. He wore a big Vietnamese hat with no shirt. He always grabbed his chest and would go, "Now, men." And I used to go, "This guy's our football coach, But he had a great football mind. He was really smart about football, and that's how I wound up in Texas, and got some really good friendships from people there. They kind of took me in and would take me home on weekends, and back then we would do the square. We would ride around the square until a couple of girls would be riding next to us, and that's how they met the girls there. And I was like, a little different from New York, but
wow. Well, that's kind of cool. So
it was a lot of fun.
What high school did you go to, George?
Sayville High School.
Sayville High School. Okay, and were you starting quarterback then?
I was, and we had a really good year, and I kind of like wanted to really give it a good shot, give me a shot somewhere, a tryout, and uh, Coach Hawkins was his name. He met me at the airport, and it was kind of funny. It was my first time ever to fly in an airplane, and I couldn't hear. So my ears were just clogged up, and he's talking. I kept going, I can't hear, So I don't know what he said from the airport all the way back.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got to work the next day, and
Well,
I looked around, and there was a guy named Jody Hill. Jody Hill was over there, and I was watching this, kid work out, and I was like, man, that kid must play like linebacker or something like. And then they said, oh, he's a quarterback too, and I went, because the guy was just one big muscle. All he does is lift weights constantly, and we got to be best of friends. And Jody and I were roommates, and at night I used to watch him do like 200 military push-ups before he went to bed. And he always knew how much he snored, because in the morning it was based on how many shoes I'd thrown over at him to make him stop snoring. But yeah, Jody,
just a little backup. Jody Hill. What's ironic about that is Jody Hill went to work for Dallas PD as well, and wound up on the same team, same squad that George and I were on. So they were college roommates and worked together in SWAT.
Cool.
So that is kind of cool. So you went 4 years there, and then how did you decide Dallas PD, George?
Well, my dad was a school principal back in New York, and it was my goal to be a PE coach and go back to New York and be a PE teacher and coach. And about second year, he called me up and he said, listen, there's only like one PE guy in each school. It's not like he has 15 math teachers or whatever. And he goes, I don't know of any school that even needs a PE coach right now. So he suggested I get into something else. And I was actually sitting in the cafeteria talking to Jody, and a guy named Lee Cook walked up, and he's in the fraternity right next to our building. They called it the jock dorm. We all stayed, all the athletes stayed in one dorm. He was in a fraternity right next door.
All the knuckle draggers.
Right. I'm sure it smelled good, yeah.
So he starts telling us he was in a police uniform. And we were like, what are you doing, Lee? And he says, I'm a police cadet in Dallas. He said, I'm a criminal justice major, and they pay me like $900 a month, and I ride around and learn how police work's done. And he goes, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to be a policeman. And I said, Lee, doesn't your dad like own a town around here somewhere? Because I had heard he was a rich kid, And he goes, yeah, my dad's very wealthy, and he hates the thought of me becoming a policeman, but that's what I want to do. And Lee went on to be a Dallas police officer, and that's Jody and I were looking at he showed us his pay stub, and we were like, wow, $900. We were just like dumb kids, well, I think I want to do that. And I said, yeah. So I changed my degree to criminal justice.
And this was about what time? What era?
70s. Probably 72 or 3.
So was there a stigma at the time still with the Dallas PD? Was it good, bad? What was the feeling of Dallas PD?
I would just watch the news, and I know there was a lot of political pressure going on in Dallas, and And then one time I was at a bar at Commerce. I was going in with a date, and a sheriff, had a guy pinned up against the wall and was pistol whipping him with the back of his gun, yelling at him, don't ever come drunk to my town again. And I remember thinking, I know I could do a better job than that. This guy was like a terrible cop. And some of the local guys in Commerce were, the old expression, Barney Fight, and it was just such a small little town.
Sure.
But had the one bullet in the pocket.
Probably. one of our good friends, Paul Keogh, was a police cadet, started out, and I think Lynette Harris also was a police cadet when she first started. I think Paul told me that, or Lynette told me that. So a lot of good officers started out, kind of in those police explorer type of programs or cadet program. The cadet was, I think, like you said, they would get paid, for part-time work and so forth. And it was a great way to make a couple dollars while going to college. So you go through the hiring process. What was that like, George? Well, I remember mine.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I applied, the guy just flat out told me they're not hiring any white people right now. That's what exact words. And I said, what? And he says, no, it is a push. We're trying to get more minorities on the police department. And he goes, just reapply in 6 months. So I was kind of waiting around, and I actually, a fraternity brother of mine, we bought a bar in Commerce. It was called The Pub. And I started like working in there and fixing it up. And that was kind of a part-time job I had in Commerce. I was a bar manager of a nightclub while I was still going to school and everything. And so we opened up a bar, and man, I was making a killing. I was doing great. And then I got married. My wife to be there said, this is not a job for a future husband of mine and a father. You need to find a different job. So I applied with the police department thinking, okay, I'll never get hired there. And they came all the way out to the bar, sat down. My wife was there. They interviewed both of us. I offered them a beer, and they left. I said, well, I'm not getting that job, Got a call like a week later from Sergeant Hall for an appointment to meet with Chief Byrd, and they're going to, interview you and see if they'll hire you. So I met old Don Byrd. He was a tough old bird. I mean, that guy, you couldn't read him too well. And he kept asking me, if I took a chance on you, George, what would be your goal? And I'm sitting there thinking, and I said, well, I'd like to make, as many arrests as I can and stuff like that. And he goes, no, what would be your goal? And I just kind of yelled out, well, I want to be sitting in your chair one day.
Good answer.
And he went like this, and he goes, okay. There'll be no more questions. I
Wow.
went out and I thought, man, I really blew this.
Blew that one.
Right back in. And
Yeah.
he stood up, shook my hand, and he goes, and I hope you're sitting in my chair one day, George.
Oh, wow. That's kind of
And
cool.
I got hired.
Yeah.
And,
So, George, did you go through the polygraph, obviously, and
Oh, yeah.
background investigation and psychological test, physical fitness test? I mean, they put us through the ringer.
Sure.
That polygraph, I thought I was an angel starting out. And by the time I came out, I thought I was Charles Manson.
Wow.
They really hammer you hardcore. That's one good thing I would say back then, and I'm sure it's still now to a certain extent. Their background investigation is amazing. They literally come to your hometown, interview your family members and neighbors. It was kind of cool. So you get hired.
you get through all that. So then first thing is they bring you down and they give you like a little physical. So the lady's doing the eye test. I never wore glasses. And she goes, okay, what's the furthest line down you can read? And E, I can only see the top letter. And she goes, what? And I go, I guess I'm having trouble seeing. I said, I've never had an issue with wearing glasses or anything, but I promise I'll go out and get some glasses tomorrow. I said, I didn't know my eyesight was this bad. And she went, well, if you promise, and I promised, and I went to the eye doctor. And I have some like rare stigmatism. It's called keratoconus, where your cornea comes to a point. There's no way I should have ever been a policeman with my eyesight. But he prescribed some glasses, and they were thick as Coke bottles, and I wore them until I met a doctor down in Houston, Texas, and he specialized in this, and he made a special contact. Then when I put the contact on it, it flattens my cornea out, and I can see 20/20. So as long as I wore my contacts, I could see.
George was never assigned as a sniper on the team.
Right. Well, that's what the scope's for, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There you go. So you get hired and you immediately go to the academy or shortly thereafter. What was your experience at the Dallas Police Academy like?
Well, I was in pretty good shape from playing football, so the running and all that wasn't so hard. It was funny watching the other people interact, and we had a few military people, and you always had the one guy that would raise his hand. Well, what if? Well, what if?
Yeah, right at 4:55. Yeah.
It would really delay a lot of the learning process.
Yeah. So did you come to love Bachman Lake running around that?
Running around that lake, yeah. And it's funny that I wound up that was like one of my beats when I worked at Northwest. I wound up going to that same police station, Northwest, and many a nights going around Bachman Lake catching people doing dope or just crazy stuff and
Other things. Absolutely. So George went to I think we talked about this a little bit on our last podcast where Dallas, I think, has 5 or 6 divisions,
Right.
patrol divisions or stations. And
Right.
So he went to Northwest, and that's the same division that I ended up
Right.
working. So let's talk about Doughboy, your trainer, your one of
Well,
your,
before we get to Doughboy, I got to tell you my very first night on the job. Doughboy was off, and I got put with James Gamble. Gamble, I think is his name. James Gamble, Jim Gamble. And he's a laid back guy, and he was a really nice guy. We would drive around, nothing happened all night long. And then he goes, okay, there's this good old boy down the Northwest Highway. He's kind of a bootlegger, and he sells beer to make some money. He's kind of crippled. And I like to check on him, because you just never know. So we're going down this dirt road in the middle of nowhere on Northwest Highway, and all of a sudden this truck goes screaming by us really fast. And he goes, let's go check on this old man first. And as we're getting close to the shed, bullets are flying by the squad car.
Uh-oh.
And Junior Gamble looks at me and he goes, what's that? And I go, yeah, those are gunshots. And we bail out of the car. We're calling an assist officer. We called in SWAT. And then the negotiator opens up, gets him to come out, and he comes out, and he's literally on a walker. He gets about 2 feet, and he's got a voice machine. I'm sorry. He goes, I thought I was getting robbed. I thought you were coming back to rob me. And he goes, I'm sorry. And I just looked over the squad car and I said, is this what police work is going to be like for the rest of my life?
Welcome to the show, Ron.
Yeah. And then after that, I got Doughboy, and Doughboy told me, he said, Yankee, he said, anything you learn in that academy, you just forget it. He said, I'm gonna make sure you don't get killed if you listen to what I tell you. I went, okay, Doughboy. And he looked at me and goes, you like to drive fast? And I go, well, yeah, I guess, He goes, let's go have some fun.
Watch this.
And we went out to the river bottoms, and they have those big levees. And he gets going like 100 miles an hour, and he goes down one side of the levee, and he comes flying back over the top, down the other side. He was a great driver. I mean, the guy he should have been a race car driver or something. But I had to change my underwear a couple times there when he would be driving. He was quite the character, but he was probably one of the best policemen I ever worked around too. I mean, Doughboy, he just, he wasn't a very big statured guy, and he wasn't in good shape, but there wasn't anybody that could buffalo him, and he wouldn't back down from anybody. He just wasn't like the first guy that could run somebody down, but he was smart. He was articulate. He should have been a teacher. He could write so well. He taught me how that block print. I kind of would watch the way he would do it, and then I'd start writing like him. But yeah, he would take a little AM radio about this big, and he wrap rubber bands back and put it right up on the windshield because we didn't have any good time radios, and we'd be listening to the country music or something like that. And one night we were driving real slow through an apartment complex, and all of a sudden, over the microphone, over the radio, it came, "Hey, I got the stuff. Come on, bring the car around." And Doughboy looked at me and he goes, "That's really close. Somebody's really close doing something bad." So we got out of the car and we're like looking around, like we could see a guy with the long antenna walkie-talkie, and all of a sudden he's going like this, and here come his little buddies out with stereos and everything out of an apartment, and we caught him and made nice arrest, cleared a couple of burglaries with it. But yeah, we got a call for some kind of like breaking into a train, boxcars right past the toll booth, and toll boy screaming down there 100 miles an hour, and we pull up and everybody's walking up the hill with boxes and putting it in the trunk of a car. Got them all laid out on the street, handcuffed. I go over and I open up one of the boxes. It was boxes of sardines. They didn't even know what they were stealing. And they wound up, since it's a federal offense on a boxcar, so they, got charged with federal crime for stealing. But, they just, they saw the door open and just couldn't resist, thought it was something good.
Wow. I was thinking about your story about the levies. That was probably one of your first tests that he put on you to see if you could handle that, especially during a chase and so forth. And in West Dallas, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it starts to get kind of slow, and that's what we'd do. We'd go up and down the levees, and we'd practice our bootlegs on top of the levee, and we would practice that, because if you see any suspicious vehicle, you let them pass, and then you bootleg real quick, and 50% of the time they take off running.
Okay, so for the uninitiated, what's a bootleg?
Well, let's see, George.
How would you describe it?
If I'm wrong here, but you'd have a rubber band, all right, and you would rubber band the emergency brake to the light switch, so that so when you push it down, it doesn't click. You can let go of it. So as you're driving, you use that emergency brake, and it bootlegs you the opposite direction that you're going to get back onto the vehicle pretty quick that you're trying to catch up to. So.
Tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
And Doughboy was the best at doing that, too.
Under 21, he is listening. That is not what you do.
No.
Right, that is against the law, unless you're law enforcement going after a bad guy. All right. So, but yeah, that's one thing I haven't taught my son yet. So I need to make sure I kind of tell him. But then again, I don't even know if the emergency brakes are that built like that anymore. But anyway. So you worked, the 20s, the 520s, is that right?
520s, and that included the projects, and all the way up to Harry Hines, and in the Oak Lawn area where there's a lot of apartments and stuff like that. But it was a little bit of everything. And Doughboy was, like you said, he's always testing. Yeah. I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm already retired, so I think it's all right.
7-year statute limitation is over with.
We would meet these other 2 officers down the river bottoms, and we'd talk about things going on and everything. And I was in there on the passenger side. Doughboy's driving. We're side by side with the other guys, and an old river dog was walking by, and I don't even know how it was still alive because it looked so mangy and everything. Doughboy goes, "Yankee, you ain't got the guts if you don't kill that river dog and put it out of its misery right now." The window's already down. I start, and he goes, "You crazy Yankee! You shoot it."
You told me to, boss.
We're all peeling out of there. And I'm not kidding you. Like within 5 minutes. We've got a call on shots fired down the river bottoms. Anybody want to take that?
Really?
The guys that we were with said, "Well, I know 521 will take it."
Yeah, we'll clear that call in 3.
That was
that was a mercy killing. So I certainly understand that. That's pretty funny. The 20s it's kind of a hot sector. It's
Still?
yeah, probably still is. I would say it's kind of. It also has Little Mexico down there off of Maple Avenue. The good thing is you were close to Herrera's, my favorite
That's right.
Mexican restaurant.
We love to eat there.
Oh yeah. I've
So
got
that was a culture shock, I'm sure, for you, right?
Oh my God. I grew up, when I grew up in West Sable, Long Island, there was only one black family. And I knew them well. I played football with one of them, and it was like no big deal. But when I came here, I mean, we answered a call, the first call in the projects. It was a rape in progress. And what it was, truthfully, was the man wanted to get some and the woman didn't want to give him any. But we didn't know that when we're there, and you could hear her screaming and screaming. And I'm looking around, everybody's, ooh, all of a sudden the door opens up and she's got her shirt ripped open. She goes out in the middle of the foyer and everybody's out. She's screaming and she's laying on the ground and she's like making this big scene. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like 100 to 2, it's just me and Doughboy. And Doughboy gets down on one knee and he pushes her down. He goes, do you want to make a report or not? This is your husband. Do you want me to put him in jail? And everybody went, whoa, including me, And then she goes, well, no, he's my husband. I don't want to make a report on him. He goes, good, then we're out of here. Come on, rookie, let's go. And I'm like, back it up, But it was pretty funny. He knew how to handle it.
Yeah, that's so it's
And that's part of the policing that people don't realize. You've got to connect with your community.
Yeah, and you have to connect quick.
Yes.
Well,
like you've said before, you see them at their worst.
Right.
You're not seeing people on a good day usually.
No,
they don't call us when they're happy. That's for darn sure. So, but George, many times I can work in West Dallas and you walk in on a call and it's just you and your partner and it's 2:00 in the morning. It's 100 degrees outside.
Right.
And you're
wearing 7 layers of gear.
Exactly. And there's 200-300 people just gathered around, just kind of watching, and you kind of feel like the Lone Ranger at times. So yeah, it's there was many unfortunate officers that were shot in West Dallas. It was a mandatory 2-man unit down there, so it was kind of crazy. So tell us about something. There was a serial rapist that was happening, I think, off around Lemon and so forth, where the rapist I believe he was targeting airline stewardesses and people of that nature, I believe, or correct me if I'm wrong, but
it was really, he was targeting any woman that would answer the door. He would put a smock on with a name, and he'd get a 25-cent air filter and knock on the door, and he goes, I'm the maintenance. I'm here to change the filter. Would you just let me go in there for 5 minutes and do it? The ones that would let him in, he'd rape them. And the ones that didn't, he'd just go to the next door but he was definitely out there scouting who was living by themselves or just a roommate. He had all that kind of information. And yeah, one night, Steve Gunn and I were working. The one and only rookie I had was Steve Gunn. And we got a call for
control for what, maybe 3-4 years now? Or?
No, only about 2 years. 2 years, and they just asked me to become a FTO, and Steve Gunn was the first guy. And it was not long after he and I started working together, and we got this, rape in progress up in North Dallas, way up in North Dallas. And back then, you just had the maps go. So Steve's looking it up. I kind of know where it is, so I'm driving and I'm going as fast as I can. Dispatcher comes on and goes, please go code 3. They're screaming. And I'm going, okay. Steve finds exactly where it is. And we go down and we make a left. Well, there's 2 sisters that were state representatives' daughters. And he bought houses for each one. And the only thing that separated them was an alley. And the guy had broke in and raped the one girl and left. So that sister calls the other one and says, I've just been raped. What do? I don't want any shame to come on my dad because he's a state representative and all this stuff. And they're talking on the phone. And the guy had left his cigarettes on the ironing board. And he starts coming back in the house. So the girl starts screaming again. So it was the sister that did not get raped that called us. And that's who we got to. And she's out front going, it's my sister. She's on the next street over. I said, get in the car. So she's in the car. and I go and I make a left. At 2 o'clock in the morning, this white guy runs right in front of the hood of my car, and I said, "Steve, that's our suspect." And we got right behind him, jumped out. We both yelled, "Stop or we'll shoot," which never works, right? And he stopped and put his hands up. And I actually looked over the top of the car and went, "Can you believe he stopped?" Because it never stopped. And we handcuffed him, and he had a little baggie of marijuana in his pocket, and put him in the back of the squad car, went around to the front of the house. Now all the neighbors are out and everybody's gathered around. And I looked back at the guy a couple of times, and he's real quiet. He kept looking down, and there was a previous murder and rape over in the Northeast section. And the one roommate lived through it, and she sat down with an artist and described the guy. And we all had that artist drawing, and I had it up on my visor, and I kept looking at the guy, and I kept thinking I know the guy. And then Robert Garza drove up, and he and I used to kind of like cover each other. And I said, "Robert, where do I know? This guy looks so familiar." And Robert goes, "Look!" And he pointed at
That's
I
it.
go, "Hey, dude, that's you." And the guy, he only said one thing to me the whole time. He says, I want an attorney." And I
Yeah.
went, "Yeah, I bet you do."
I bet he does. Yeah. Wow.
So,
How many rapes and did you clear off that? I wonder. I mean, how many? That's
well,
amazing.
those two for sure. But when they caught the little guys that he worked with, he was kind of a car thief, and they said he had raped so many girls that they were scared of him, and they moved to Massachusetts to get away from him because they said he was going to kill somebody. They knew he was going to kill somebody, and he did. He strangled that girl over in the Northeast section, and was on the bed raping her when the roommate walked in, and she was an airline stewardess also. And she came in and she yelled out, and he replied, "Well, I'll be out in a minute. Don't come back here." And she could actually see her roommate's legs dangling off the bed and not moving. So she was like asking a couple more questions. And then he actually walked out into the room and said, "Oh, she's back there just resting on the bed. She'll be fine." And I'm putting in the air filter. And she goes, "Okay, I forgot something in my car." And she turned around because she knew something was wrong. And he starts strangling her from behind. And he's like strangling her, but it's hard to kill somebody from behind on the neck. She remembers her training from being a stewardess, and she fakes like she's dead. And he throws a towel over her face, but she could see the lights were on and she could see him fine. He jumped on her a couple times. He was fondling her, and he started to pull her pants down. And then he just said, "The heck with it. I'm going." And he kept talking. And then he went to the door and he opened the door and closed it, opened the door and closed it. But she could see that he was doing that. So she waited till he finally actually left the apartment. And then she ran out, screaming out of the apartment. And two nurses from England that had just moved in from England were close by. They were sisters. And they come over and they tried everything they could to save the lady, but she was gone. They couldn't do anything. And we had 3 trials. The first trial put, death sentence. Second trial, death sentence. 30 years later, a third trial. And some movie company from England was making a movie about this guy. They thought he was innocent. And they came and interviewed me and everybody involved, and trying to slant it so he couldn't possibly have done that, But third trial, guilty, but the judge was not a death sentence guy. And he said, "You already had served 35 years, so I'm just going to commute it to life." And I've been contacted every time he's up for parole. I write a letter. They send like I'm a victim of it. They send. So I keep writing letters, and he just got that turned down again. So he's got to spend 5 more years again.
Good deal, man. That's a great arrest with those Steve Gunn, who also eventually transferred to SWAT, the guy that we worked with as well.
So all the cool people are in SWAT.
Well, of course.
Okay.
Heck yeah,
Well,
that's right.
And it's funny. I had another kind of high profile arrest for a little girl, 16 years old. She stabbed her mother to death and shot her father after she stabbed the mom. And since I was the low man on the totem pole, I was put in the front of the house and everybody was in the back because they thought the suspect was somewhere in the back. And this little girl walked up to me and put up her arms. This little cute little girl said, "I did it. I'm sorry, but I know my mom's dead, but I think my dad might live." And I went, "Show me the gun," because I didn't even believe her. And she walked right over to a car and pointed in the car, and there was the gun and put the cuffs on her. And so that was a long trial. Got a lot of publicity. So between that and the other one, I can't remember where it was, but Sergeant Bill Johnson from SWAT, he comes walking up to me and he introduced himself and he told me, what they do in SWAT. And he goes, "Would you be interested in, coming over to SWAT and get a take home car and get weekends off?" I said, "Well, let me think about that, Sarge. The projects
SWAT.
and take home car. Let's go
Yes.
with the take home car."
Now
Hard to say.
you didn't really get the weekends off. I mean, come on.
Well, actually, the days off were either Friday, Saturdays, or Sunday, Mondays.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
Yeah.
So you had at least one day, one.
But you're also on call 24/7, though. Really.
for the most
Oh,
part.
Yeah,
It's
that's a whole nother story, the on-call business, because
Yeah.
you get called out so many times. And they only had 4 squads in A unit, 4 squads in E unit. So when you get a call out, they would send 2 squads. And you'd think that'd be enough, but I think now they send all 4 when they have one deal. But we used to use just 2 guys on the perimeter and 3 guys go in and get them.
yeah, back in the day, way back in the day. So yeah, that's so it was Sergeant Johnson that asked you to come over. So did you go to his squad?
I did. I went to his squad and I was the gas man. They made me the gas man, and I was kind of proud of that until I started driving around with all the gas in the trunk and it leaks.
Yeah.
And I used to, my eyes be watering. And I go,
Yep.
now I know I'm the gas man.
Yep. So when I first went over, they assigned me as the gas guy too. It's like, oh man, you pop that trunk, and it's like, oh my gosh, it just comes out. I guess all the rookies get to be the gas technician,
Is
but
that an initiation? Do you think?
probably so, because nobody else wants to carry, all that gas and deploy it, and it's just
All they had was
was,
old Army
Army
ammunition things,
ammo
and,
boxes.
and
Yep.
those all leaked, so they,
Yep. You'd have
smell
gas
that.
grenades
It
and
was horrible.
570s and 550s in there. And, oh, yeah, that was pretty cool. So, do you remember who was on your squad when you first went over there? And George, what was your experience being a rookie SWAT guy? With all these guys, these legends basically that you worked with.
Yeah, I had Doyle Goslin, who we had called Goose because of his last name, George King, ex-military, Jody Hill, Mark Ward, and Gary Henley and C.B. Johnson. And that was my first squad. And well, like I said, we trained where 2 guys, one takes the AB side, the other one takes the CD side. So the outside was covered. And then the other guys would go in with the sergeant and try to get whoever it was. And there was no negotiating. Our sergeants did the talking if they had somebody to talk to. And that's where I learned from Sergeant Johnson. Sergeant Johnson was a car salesman on the side. He could talk to anybody, and he could talk anybody into a car. I used to watch him, and I used to go, this guy has got such a gift of gab, just a good old boy that just logical, easy sense about everything he said. And he was probably one of the best sergeants I ever worked for with his experience. And then he worked closely with Sergeant Wafer, Tommy Wafer. He was over the 20s, and we were the 10s. And the very first time I really saw Sergeant Johnson shine was the guy that climbed up to the top of the Hyatt Regency Hotel, and while he's on the observation deck, he takes out a ratchet set and he undoes the burglar bars. And while he's doing this, people are taking pictures of him because he had a black motorcycle helmet, a black cape, and a white jumpsuit and a knapsack. So he takes the burglar bars off, and then he stands up and he rappels down to the bottom of the globe. And he's on that piping with the lights and he's down there, and he's got peanut butter jelly sandwiches and he makes paper airplanes out of his flyers, and he's throwing the little paper airplanes down with some kind of message. I can't remember what it was.
People are absolutely crazy.
So we're all up there in the dining area of that thing that turns around, and the fire department's taking the window out, and Captain Holt just yells out as loud as he can, "Michalski!" Michalski is the littlest guy in SWAT from Chicago. He's a hell of a nice guy, a very tiny guy. Michalski, and everybody got real quiet. And he goes, "How much do you weigh, Michalski?" And Michalski, he didn't even wait a second. 400 pounds, sir. And even Captain Holt was laughing.
Yeah.
And when everybody stopped laughing, Captain Holt said, "I gather you don't want to be lowered down to talk to this guy." And he goes, "No, sir, not at all, sir." So we were kind of stymied. Nobody knew how to talk to, and Sergeant Johnson goes over to the floor plug in the floor and takes the whole metal thing out, which gave him he could actually see through the plug, and it was right over the top of the circuit. And he starts talking to him through that, and everything he said, the guy goes, "No, I'm just going to stay here all day, send my messages out, and that's what I have planned." So he goes, "Well, what about if a lady with her 3 kids in a car drives by and looks up and has an accident and they all get killed? What do you think about that?" And I remember he goes, "Well, I hadn't thought about that. All right, I'm going to come down." So Johnson turns around to me and Steve Gunn and says, "Get down on that catwalk. He's going to come down." We're waiting down on the catwalk, and here he comes. I'm watching him rappel, going, I hate to repel. All that training we did. And this citizen is rappelling down in the most dangerous situation. We put the cuffs on him. I look at Steve Gunn. I go, "You want to be in the newspaper tomorrow, Steve?" He goes, yeah. I said, "Don't let go of that arm." So we're going down. We come out of the elevator, and there's Sergeant Johnson. And he goes up and he goes, "I got it from here, Steve." Steve was pissed because we were on the front of the paper the next day, and Steve Gunn was like, "Ah."
Miss his shot at glory. Oh, that's funny. That is so cool. That is a great story. That's so cool. I've heard you tell me that one. But the job is demanding. I mean, it's physically demanding, mentally demanding. Talk about the I don't know, not the repercussions, but I mean, you're probably like me. You wake up every single day with a pain in your knee, your shoulders, and you reflect back on, well, that hurt came from this call out, or I mean, it's hard on our bodies. It really, really was.
One night, I know we got called out 3 different times back to back. I mean, we literally went out, handled the deal, come home, lay down, called out. And at the time, I was married, and my wife at that time said, "If it's like this all the time, this isn't going to work." And it was like that all. I mean, we got called out to Highland Park, to Rockwall. Because the little bitty police departments didn't even have a SWAT team. They didn't know what to do, so they would call Dallas out, and and they.
The big rock wall call out.
Yeah, there was a guy in a grocery store with a gun, I guess. Mm-hmm. And he
remember
was hiding
where
in the grocery store.
Yeah. Well, he robbed a bank, and then local PD got in a foot chase, and he ran into a Walmart.
Right.
You remember where you and I were at when we got that call?
Yeah. A long ways away.
Yeah. we were. So in SWAT, not only do you go do barricaded suspects, or hostage, you're also assigned to dignitary protection and so forth. And Dallas being a big oil city, we were assigned that day.
I'm sure you loved that part of it.
Yeah. We were assigned to an oil sheik who was in town for some, I don't know, meeting with somebody, and we're at, I can't remember what hotel it was.
Anatole.
The Anatole Hotel, that's right. And I mean, probably one of the nicest places.
Oh, yeah.
But we're standing, outside guarding a door while he's in the penthouse, basically. And, And, they have their Secret Service and, kind of like what, the president does.
Yes.
And, we met their lead agent, nice guy. He made sure we had coffee or water and so forth. And then on the radio, we hear the call out. They put out, I think it was a Signal 45, which is a barricaded suspect in Rockwall. And I remember looking at you and I go, George, where's Rockwall? Because we got to go. And so we tell this Secret Service guy for the Sheik that we're leaving. And he has a conniption. He thinks it's
You guys are supposed to stay.
That's exactly right. He thinks it's a setup, or we're leaving, so there could be a hit on the person, and he's talking to us in broken English and so forth, and we just, get out of the way. We got to go.
See ya.
And we go up Stemmons and then up LBJ Freeway, and man, traffic was just, it's always bad in Dallas. I remember you turning on your lights and sirens, like, well, I guess we're running code. So that was like a 40-mile or 50-mile code 3 call to get to Rockwall. And that's
and the traffic was still bad back then, like it is now. It was bumper to bumper all the time going across the lake. And but we finally got over there and did a good job searching the place. And then after it was over, we got like really bad news from our lieutenant. Our good buddy, J.J. Terrell, had been skiing up in Colorado and crashed into a tree, broke his back, and they didn't know if he was even going to make it. But good old Ross Perot, where we all took turns working at his house, guarding him, his private jet flew out there and picked him up, brought him back. Because J.J. had worked for Perot too. And they had him brought back and got the finest doctors to fix him up and saved his life, really.
When he ran for president, I think it was Saturday Night Live, did some memes. And that guy was really a patriot. That guy took care. He'd come and, we'd get new equipment, from him. When John Glenn Chase died, he rented a 747, and loaded up all the Dallas officers and flew us out there. And he was always doing. He was a big fan of law enforcement, and there's a lot of things that he's done for our government as well that people probably don't know about and so forth. That's kind of semi-top secret.
And we had a huge deal once with a bank robber. A bank robber broke into a bank president's house and held the wife and kids hostage and told the banker to go get a bunch of money. Well, banker called the FBI. The FBI was watching the house. They made the decision that because the guy got antsy and he made the wife and kids drive him around, the FBI decided to let him leave the house. So then the patrol stopped him in the middle of Live Oak and Haskell in August. And we had this huge deal all day long with the wife and two kids screaming. And this is back when we just had shotguns and revolvers. And nobody knew how to communicate with the guy. So while we're trying to figure this out, somebody runs down to Radio Shack, buys those two phones that have a line connected to them. And as long as the batteries were working, you could talk to each other. So Sergeant Johnson says, I need you to crawl up there and hand the phone to the bad guy through the window. And I said, and you guys have covered me with shotguns, right? Because I was a big one when I first got to town. I said, why are we using 12-gauge shotguns? All the bad guys have the good guns. And so I crawled up there and guy's yelling at me. I'm yelling back at him. And he took the phone. And then Sergeant Whitfield, I think it was his first time he ever negotiated with anybody. And I was on the ground right where the lady was sitting in the driver's seat, could see me through the rearview mirror. And I was like writing her notes and stuff. But Sergeant Whitfield did such a good job. He finally talked the guy into releasing the kids. Kids come out. I'm writing notes now to the lady, break and run when you can, break and run. And Sergeant Whitfield kept saying, out of all the things you ever hear, now listen, friend. He kept calling him friend. And every officer out there would go, friend. But it kind of worked. You know, the guy kind of calmed down, and he wanted all the squad cars removed. And believe it or not, like God's looking over, but all the squad cars that got there and left the lights going, and they all turned off the engines because we were out there all day. Not one of those squad cars would start back up. They actually went to move the squad cars, and they're all dead. So he was stuck. And Whitfield was being honest with him, saying, "We can't move them. You know, there's no place for you to go." And then as he's talking to him, the lady broke and ran. And then there's a famous picture of Lieutenant Librand. He grabs her shoulder. He starts running with her. You know, and they got him on CNN running with the wife. But yeah, and then he finally gave up. And because of that, the banker and Ross Perot, they put on a big dinner for all the SWAT guys. It was really nice. And Ross Perot bought us all brand new MP5 machine guns, all automatic pistols, all the latest and greatest gadgets. He got a flare system for the helicopter. The guy really took care of the SWAT team after that. Yeah. And it didn't hurt that Curtis Fortner was his like main man. He was the connection between the Perots and the police department.
Yeah.
And that helped a lot.
Yeah, and command didn't like that very much. You know,
no,
I mean,
they
did not. And he, Fortner was a great guy. Man, I really liked Curtis, but he helped pave the way for a lot of good equipment that we finally were able to kind of get to the level of a SWAT team where it needed to be back in the late 70s. So yeah, that was, and I guess we got the MP5s in the early 80s. I'm thinking, yeah. So, how did you evolve into negotiations, George? George was probably one of the famous negotiators for Dallas SWAT. You know that.
They started some training programs in Arlington, and they had some famous guy that wrote a book about negotiations that was on retainer with Arlington, and he was putting on some schools, and they wanted to send some Dallas officers over there. So they said, Sergeant said, you know, I think you'd be a good negotiator. Do you want to try it? And you can put you through the school. So I went to the school, and it was those type where they would keep you up 24 hours and try to wear you down and get you real tired, like a real situation, and then put you on the microphone and start talking to somebody. But they didn't know that George found a cot. we were out there. We were all hiding in these different spots, and in this little house I was hiding, I looked over and went, "Oh, thank you, Lord, there's a cot." So I laid down and took a little bit of a nap. But I was the most bright-eyed guy the next day. They couldn't understand how I looked so good, right? But anyway, that was a nice little school, and then I started doing deals, and you know, I had a pretty good knack for it. And then one time a guy was in a car and was holding his wife with a knife, and he had like pulled her over on the passenger seat. So I opened the driver's door, and I kept the door between me. And I was getting a pretty good rapport with the guy. And Goose kept creeping up behind the guy with his personal M16, which looks pretty daunting, you know. And the guy was getting so scared. Hey, get that guy back. Get that guy. And I'd look over the car and go, "Goose, please move back. The guy's almost giving it up, you know." Goose goes. He always had that scar. Goose was a very special officer, and good guy. And you learned a lot from him, and he was your John Wayne, man. He had that 44 Magnum pistol and his own personal M16, just a good old country boy that could shoot. Man, could he shoot. But anyway, the guy finally gave up, and when he gave up, everybody kept saying, "Hey, keep doing this. And then one day Highland Park called us, and Highland Park, they were a rich little town, and their chief was our former Chief Dixon. And he'd been talking to a guy for a couple hours that had jumped up on the hood of a car and killed the newspaper delivery guy. And he shot his way into the federal Judge Marshall's house. And Judge Marshall had pushed his wife and little daughter into the little cubby under the stairs. to the house, and he threw like a chair in front of it. And when I got there, Chief Dixon was trying his best, but the guy kept saying, "You're not a negotiator. Get me somebody that could talk." Blah, blah, blah. He didn't like the report, and so I said, "Chief," I said, "if you let me talk to him, I've been kind of trained how to do this." So he introduced me to the bad guy, and then it was like really bizarre talk. The guy was telling me he was on the moon with Steve McQueen, spent a good time with Steve McQueen on the moon, and just like out of his mind. And as I'm talking, I'm getting these notes that he's not on his meds, and some local cop was brought in to talk.
This was the Perryman case, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And how do you remember that?
He's a genius. He's a professor, George.
Yeah.
He knows these things.
And so anyway,
This guy was a squirrel, yeah.
He's the local officers telling me that when he's off his meds, they usually could talk him down and put him to bed and no problems. But this particular night, they didn't know what happened, and like he literally jumped up on the hood of a car and shot this guy and killed him, and then shot his way into the judge's house. And he knew the judge, and they like seen each other, and everything was fine, but this night was not good, and he was really off his rocker. And when the judge had a chance, he would tell me, okay, he's got a whole bunch of furniture in front of the front door, don't try to come through that way. I got my wife and kid under the stairs, but he doesn't know that. And so, all night long we're going back and forth. And at one point, I really thought I had him. And he goes, "But Mr. Negotiator, I have the wife and child in here too." And I took a chance and I said, "Oh no, I'm sorry. We already got him out of there before this all started. We got them out of here. They're out here with us." And he went, "What? Judge, did you know that?" And the judge heard what was going on. He goes, yeah, that happened early on. I pushed him out the door. And he goes, "Okay, all right." And then we're talking in it's daylight. And I said, "Hey," I said, "the judge has to go to work. Would you mind giving the judge a ride to work?" And he literally goes, "Judge, you can leave at any time. You know that." And you can hear the judge. He says, "Well, there is a little matter of all the furniture in front of the front door." And the guy goes, "Well, let's go out the back door. I'll give you a ride. Come on, let's go." So that was about all the information we had. I alerted the squad. They're coming out the back. And he walks out. First, the judge walks out. He walks down the steps. And then he's got a shotgun. He's got 2 automatic pistols and a bulletproof vest on. Something the judge might have told us about, but never did,
Would have been nice to know before. Yeah.
But Jody grabbed him real quick, jerked him down, and they got the guns away from him. And there was no shots fired. And kind of a side story to that, years later, I'm doing an accident call when I'm working traffic, and I'm talking to the lady, and a guy gets out of the car, and he's walking up, and he's waving, and I look at him, I go, "God, that guy looks familiar." And I go, "Who is that guy?" She says, "Oh, that's Prettyman." And I go, "Prettyman? He's out of jail?" And she goes, "Oh, he's been out for a while. He went to Terrell State Hospital, and 5 psychiatrists said as long as he's on his meds, he'll be fine." So they're fucking right next to me, going in the house. He was out a free man, and everybody got paid off. Everybody got a donation from the guy, because his dad was an oil man. And he paid off all those psychiatrists. The judge marshal told me that he would never see the outside of a jail, but it was the wrong judge. The one that actually did the trial was a very lenient judge. And I was the only one that didn't get
Awesome job. But George was known, and that, through negotiations, the first thing the guy would do,
Right.
when he'd come out to surrender, would scream, "George, where's George?
Where's George?
I need George." I mean, so yeah.
So
he was a
you
talented
developed a
negotiator.
reputation, a rapport.
Oh, yeah.
So I have to ask this question: when you're in a negotiation, what goes through your mind? Are you going there thinking, "Okay, we've been here for X number of hours, or and there is that kind of feeling of, do we tell these people the truth, or as you just mentioned with the lie about the hostages, you're taking a gamble, right?
I took a big gamble, but nothing was working with that guy,
Right.
It was like, yeah, I know he's crazy. I got to tell him, oh, yeah, you're on the moon. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did kind of think of all my training. I do have an assistant negotiator that's feeding me things, and all that training is great, but you just got to use some common sense, like Sergeant Johnson, try something that might work. And when you're in that like negotiating van and you're protected, you don't worry too much. But when you're out really close to them, you got to really have a lot of trust in your sniper buddies. Because I was on like the front porch of a deal once, and the guy was ex-Green Beret, and I knew that they might get a green light because he was in there with a knife with his wife. Also, he was sitting on the living room floor with a knife to the wife, and he was. You could tell he was really serious and really wanted to kill his wife because she wasn't letting him see the kids. And on that deal, I actually took out a picture of my daughter, and I showed it to him. I said, "See, I've got a little daughter. I have visitations just like you." I said, "I know exactly what you're going through. It's hard. Every 2 weeks, you don't get to see your kid once." And I kind of got where he was like, "Oh, really?" And he started like, he thought he was the only one that had this issue, but we found out later, he walked 5 miles to get to this house. And when he finally came out and he started fighting with Jody and everybody, he was leg whipping everybody. And he was a tough little guy because he was ex-Green Beret. And but luckily, that all worked out good.
I think that's the one, if I remember correctly, we're stacked up by the door while you're negotiating, and she kept coming to the door answering for him. I don't know if that's the same one. And so our plan was, as soon as she comes out again, we're just going to grab her and pull her out. And like you said, this guy was just a beast. And so we had this tug of war with this lady, and we finally got her out. And then eventually we get him, and it was on like Donkey Kong. But yeah, George was just, and what was cool about George is, I mean, one call out, he's the primary negotiator, and then the next call out, he's on the entry team.
Right. So did you
would transition?
Rotate? Yeah, transition.
Right. So
Okay.
depending on if you're primary or secondary, it would depend on the type of assignment that you would have.
Okay.
But did you ever? I always wondered this, and I never asked you this question before working with you for so many years. Was it ever hard to transition from negotiating one call out to being an assaulter on the next, an entry team member on the next?
It was hard, but we did so much training. I mean, when you had downtime, you were training, and I think that's the one thing I could say that always, like Jody was always the number one guy. He always went in first. He had multiple shootings. He was just a really good officer to be number one. One night, Jody's off, and Sergeant Phillips, he says, "All right, I want you to be number one." And I'm like, "Okay, where are we going?" And he goes, "It's a drug deal, and the guy's selling crack out of the apartment." I go, "Okay." So Mark Mason was going to be the slammer. Sometimes I was the slammer, so Mark's going to be the slammer. We get up there, we're real quiet, and Mark's right in front of the door. I go, "Oh," I said, "Get on the side of the door and slam from the side." So he goes on the side of the door, and he yells out, "Police!" And as he rears back, a shot goes right through the middle of the door. And you could see the smoke. It was like, so the guy must have had the gun right up against the door. One shot, and then you could hear running. And I said, "Slam it, Mark." So Mark opens it up. I'm standing there, and he turns around, he points the gun at me, and I shot a burst of 4, right? What do we train? We're always trained to do bursts of 3. And I shot 4 times, and I hit him 3 times. And I remember looking down at my finger going, I can't believe. I always said if I ever got shot at, I would unload that whole clip on somebody. But I did what I was trained. that's what we were trying to do. And
Wow. It's amazing how lucky I think we all were. Even like, they'll call out where, well, just backing up a little bit, back in the early 80s, rock or crack cocaine just exploded.
Epidemic.
It was.
It's like meth now, or fentanyl.
Right. And Dallas was like leading the nation in murders based on crack cocaine and
Try Christian County, Missouri. Yeah, it was terrible too.
Wow. We received intel that Jamaicans had taken over the crack cocaine dealership, I should say, and they would hire local kids to run the rock houses, and if they were short on funds, they would shoot the local kid in the back of the kneecap, just as a message to everybody else. And they were told, when SWAT comes in, if you don't shoot at them, this is what's going to happen. So Bobby Quinn got in a shootout, over that. We had one where Goose throws the flashbang through the window, and Jody's number one, I'm number two, and Jody breaks right, and it's pitch black in there, and of course you got flashlights on, and I'm covering right in front of me because he's already clear to the right, and then off to my far right, I just see this bright light, and as soon as I swing over, you can see the guy throwing the gun or doing this, which I did not see a gun, but we later found the gun on the floor. But long story short, go back to the door where I was making entry, and right here was the bullet hole. I mean, just by inches, by the grace of God, we didn't get hit. So it was crazy times back then. It was. George, how many times, and I can remember Bob Quinn was my deciding factor of transferring to your squad, because he used to tell me, man, on weekends, we're doing twice as many barricaded suspects, twice as many, hazardous narcotic arrests, search warrants, and I'm going, whatever. And so then I started looking at the numbers, and I'm going, whoa, those guys are kicking some serious ass, quite frankly. And so there was an opening, and I got to come on to George's team, and Jody was there, these living legends, that we got to work with. And even, on the other teams, we had, Bill Carrillo, man, just an awesome operator, and Javier Alonso, Al Hollingsworth, the guy these guys were just amazing. And I was the rookie SWAT cop trying to live up to that, but I was the rookie. But when I came over to the 10s, man, that's when my SWAT career, I guess, really started to, get a lot more fun, I should say. And, Roger Hake, Mark Mason, Goose Coslin, had several.
Ray Boudreau was a sergeant. Was
Dave
really
Phillips.
aggressive. He volunteered for everything. So did Dave Phillips. They both like to run the warrants. And I know with the last count, when Dave Phillips was there, we ran over 1,000 hazardous stroke warrants in 1 year, which is nuts. That's really crazy.
We'd be loaded up in a van, with very little air conditioning, quite frankly. With 50
in the middle
pounds,
of Dallas.
Yeah, 50 pounds of gear swapped on, an MP5, heavy vest, and.
Were you wearing helmets yet?
No,
no helmets.
No, that came just a little bit, a little bit later.
No ear protection either.
No ear protection. Well,
what? Huh?
And I think I told you, and every crack house, we deploy flashbangs, right?
Yeah.
And the bang would go off, and boom, and your left ear would be exposed to that constantly.
There was no discussion of CTE, concussion protocol, none of that.
I was telling George just the other day, I finally broke down. I got hearing aids, because of the hearing in my left ear is just so horrible. But George, we would sit in the van all day long and go from warrant after warrant. One time we did like 11 warrants in one freaking day, which is just nuts. The fatigue factor, but we were young and in shape back then, and you had to be because of that.
I remember Scott Pelley. He was a cub reporter, just starting out as a reporter. So he did a special where he rode with us when we did our warrants for 2 weeks, and he
Operation
filmed
Clean
everything
Sweep
that we did. And on one warrant, their TV guys coming in right behind you.
Yeah.
And I turned into the room, and a little boy about 3 4 years old, just able to walk really, and he points the pistol at me. And I mean, you have that 2 second, is that real or is that not real?
Right.
And thank God it was not real, but that can happen. You can shoot the wrong person, wrong
In
time.
a split second.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's
Well,
where
and
all
so
the
many of
training
these
came
little airsoft rifles and that sort of thing, again, you might see it on the streets and go, well, is that real? Is it, some of them have an orange end and some don't. Some of them look like an AR-15 coming at you. So
we had one, we had a couple female officers on our team, and they were, decent. One of them, transferred out, and because sometimes SWAT is your knack, and sometimes it's not, right?
okay.
And so there was a couple incidents where she was being trained with the shotgun, and it didn't go so well, where we all walked away. As one sergeant said, he had to go change his underwear, but anyway, she transfers back to patrol and ends up getting in a gunfight with some bank robbers or something.
Bank robber, yeah.
Yeah, and just did an amazing job. So as a patrol officer, she was amazing.
Right.
Did great. But working in SWAT in a team environment, there were a few issues, not too many, but she had the tendency of as we were about to get out of the van, she'd be the first one out the door, would slam the door on us. We're trying to be quiet and creep up and be stealth, and she. Anyway, but she was a great kid. She was a nice young lady, but later came up.
Yeah, okay, I got to ask. Did you guys ever do any pranks on each other? Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Of course. We actually even used to do surgery in the locker room.
Oh, okay.
Well, before the surgery story,
Okay.
we were all, I think it was for the convention, but we were all down below in the parking garage area somewhere in a big room, and we were all at this one big table playing cards because we were waiting for something, and I can't remember what it was. And Ronnie Barden, who's a real prankster, he slipped Goose's 44 Magnum out of his holster, and it was being passed around under the table. So by the time, it was going around, and everybody's just, the more as soon as you saw the gun, if it came to your lap, everybody was laughing. And Goose is like dealing cards and going, why is everybody laughing? And Ronnie Barden, he's saying stuff like, well, you might be a little lighter than usual, Goose. Who knows? And Goose doesn't know what's going on. And then the sergeant comes in and goes, okay, we're ready to go. And Goose stands up, and he always put his hand on that 44, and it was gone. And he was like, he
was ready to kick everybody's ass.
Come on, give it back. I don't have it, Goose. I don't have it. But yeah, that was the kind of stuff you did on each other.
Yeah, we had, just some characters, some cool people that you got to work with that, lifelong friends,
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, it's a, I don't know, there's a connection when you're going after some serious bad guys, and that guy behind you or in front of you has your back.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think that's why they did the amount of training too, because I say that to all the young officers I meet. I said, you just remember your training and you'll be fine. And like one night, Gary Henley and I were going up to McDonald's to get a burger. And we're going down the road, and these two guys are walking. I could see they had something kind of weird under their arm. And I said, slow down, Gary. And I rolled the window and said, what do you got on your arm? He drops a cash drawer from a restaurant. Well, he had just robbed the McDonald's, but we didn't know that yet. And cash drawer, he takes off running. Well, I take off after him. Gary goes after the other guy. And I could see the guy had something else in his arms, but he was pretty good ways ahead of me. And all of a sudden, 2 steps, and he's up over a 6-foot wooden fence. And I ran up to it. What does the academy teach you? Don't ever come over that fence, go around. I stopped, and I went around, and there was a sawed-off shotgun in the grass. And later on, he's a little juvenile. Later on, we caught him. he told me he was waiting for me to come over the fence and he was going to blow my head off. I said, "Oh, that's nice.
Appreciate it.
That's a
Yes,
charge." But you know,
yeah.
you really do
You're
what
blessed.
you're trained to do.
Yeah,
That's-
you do.
that's
You got to
my
fall back on.
I didn't know if you had any questions on this, but post SWAT, did you want to go into what happens after? What do you do after SWAT?
Well, George, I mean,
Quite a bit.
You mean like after a call out, or
No, I meant
your
like
life? I mean,
your life. Didn't you run a business with your brother later?
I did. When I went to traffic and I was like bored out of my mind and it just working traffic,
Right.
just working a regular shift and going home. I had so much extra time. There's a little shop down there in the Lakewood area. It was only like $800 a month rent, and I wanted to do a little snow cone place, so I opened up the snow cone. My brother Dan came down. We called
Right.
it Icy Blue, Inner City Youth, and we gave little kids free snow cones if they would bring in their schoolwork, and it was nice. It was fun. You know,
Yeah.
didn't make any big money at it, but it was fun and kept my brother out of jail for a while.
And you helped a lot of people.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
George always had something on the side going on. He was quite the entrepreneur. I mean, there wasn't. I can't remember a time when you didn't have a little side gig going on. You know that we would occasionally go check on. You know, while we're working. But what was cool about SWAT, the flexibility that we had. You know, you start your day out working out. You know, you work out for a couple of hours, and then y'all load up. You know, in a couple cars, and everybody goes eat out to dinner to eat if you're working evenings.
Right.
Then you take care of the little PB, which is personal business. You know, running it, checking on this or checking on that, and then the work would begin. So it was a really, really cool gig.
So when did you do all the paperwork?
Oh,
The fun part.
yeah, that was the fun part. Yeah, we'd and we did everything from SWAT stuff to extra patrol in high crime areas. You know, patrol would get upset with us because we were always jumping hot calls and stuff like that. But that's what we were there for. And then sometimes we were answering calls. You know, we just answer calls for service and
Every once in a while, Vice would ask us to get in our plain clothes and try to work the prostitutes on Harry
Right.
Hines and try to get them to offer you, sex for money. And
yeah.
I was with Gary Henley and Mark Ward, and I was in the back seat, and they were like talking to the girls, and this one girl is on the side, and she points at Gary, and she goes, "Well, you're okay." And she looks at Mark, and she goes, "And you're okay. But he's police." I hadn't even said a word. And she goes, honey, I can tell you're police.
Hilarious. Do you remember what we used to call our car when we patrolled?
HSPV, high speed pursuit vehicle. Yes.
We had the knack of getting in chases, or not a tremendous amount, but we had one really long chase that was there was a homicide suspect, and so you had homicide and a SWAT team that was going to take the guy off, inside. But in case he went mobile, we would have SWAT guys assigned as chase cars. And sure enough, before I think they were able to get a perimeter on it. He got in the car and surveillance saw him, and so he took off, and so we get behind him, and the chase is on, and we went all through South Dallas and ended up going through downtown, and just crazy stuff that at that young age or adrenaline, you don't realize how dangerous it really, really is.
Well, not only for you, but for everybody else around.
Gosh, yeah,
People don't realize that when you're training.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be easy. I'm just going to knock down a door and shoot. And it's like, no, you can't do that, because what's on the other side of that wall or that door, or like you said, with the kid with the gun, is this real? Is this not?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You're spot on. You're right.
Okay.
And the older we get, the more sometimes I shake my head and say, I cannot believe we did that or survived it.
And now the local, like today's cops, half the time they're not even allowed to chase.
No. Yeah. Chases are kind of a thing of the past, unless you're the Arkansas State Police.
Yeah.
Well, Lord have mercy, they will chase you from one side of the nation to the other. That's one
Go
thing.
back into that for a minute. What has changed in your mind in law enforcement with some things?
Definitely the chases because of the innocent people that are getting hurt.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times they don't stop for red lights and they'll T-bone an innocent person.
Sure.
So all these new rules came out. You know, the fact that the district attorneys don't want to indict people anymore. Everybody gets a free pass. You know, you got to steal $1,000 before they even will arrest you, and they know
Right.
that. So they have
Right.
like their calculators now.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
lot
not like it
kinder,
was
gentler
before,
police
you know?
officers too.
You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't
definitely.
long before I started where they still had the electric chair down in Huntsville,
Wow.
and you know, old Sparky kept a lot of people honest.
Well, George, I know you got another appointment you got to get to, so man, I just want to say thanks so much for taking time, and thanks for having my back when we work together. You know, if there's anything you ever need.
Goes both ways, Bill, and I always appreciated your friendship for just like my brother that I didn't have.
Hey, well, I appreciate you saying that because that's true. It's a brotherhood for sure. So,
Thank you for the conversation this morning, and sorry for the technical issues.
yeah, again, this was our first time to
Yeah.
actually do it remotely. So we certainly hope this turns out.
We'll fix it
very
in
well.
post.
That's exactly right. So, hey, we're going to sign off from here from the Sound Collection Lab here.
And hopefully have you back someday soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you come checking out the cabin and everything, we'll do this actually again in person and go into some in-depth stories that are probably either G or PG. We'll leave the blood and guts out. There you go. But anyway.
Been a pleasure.
All
Thank
right.
you
very much.
You betcha. From the Sound Collection Lab here at the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith, thank you so much for joining us. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel and also hit that like button. So again, with my partner in crime, the Professor Jones, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Safety officer.
Put up the Holland It's coming to Holland here pretty soon. Okay, the mark unit's trying to catch up.